Welcome to Crimson Guitars, welcome to the Complication. This instrument is totally insane and I am completely loving it. In this video, we are now at the stage where the neck is mostly made. It has been settling now since I carved it, and I need to get my final finish on the fretboard, and I'm going to be attempting to get the best oiled finish on a fretboard ever. And in order to do that, off camera, there already has been rather a lot of sanding. There was the slightest hint of a twist. It's very difficult actually to see twist in a curved surface. I've used the leveling beams and I am very happy now with the final form and finish of this. Not the finish. The finish is what we're doing now. Anyway, 240 grit sandpaper, and I'm just being careful not to spend any time in any one place. And 320. Now, with most finishes, on wood at least, you don't need anything more than 320 grit. At that point you start burnishing the wood, and we're not interested in burnishing the wood because the finish won't then adhere as easily, and it's just problematic. Now, what I'm going to have to do is take this spray bottle, damp down the entire fretboard, raise the grain, and then I'm going to do that 2 or 3 more times. Damp it down, the grain raises, leave it to dry 10-15 minutes depending on how warm it is where you currently are. Then with the same grit paper, the same 320 grit, sand it down again lightly until the grain is nice and flat and smooth, and then do it again and again until the grain does not raise. Remember, we've got a fairly soft fretboard here, and that is why I'm going through this process. Harder fretboards, you don't need to worry too much about impregnating it with oil and stuff. It's a naturally oily, naturally hard-wearing wood. This is not. Wow, all right. And the grain matching has worked as well. So you can see where the binding matches up nicely. Okay, so, well, we leave this to dry for a little bit. You'll notice that I'm leaving the dust in the fret slots. I want that to build up and then protect the fret slot when I'm oiling it. 10 minutes later, it's a little bit fluffy. I can see a few sand marks actually there, so I need to spend a little bit more time taking it down. So I've left this to dry for half a day and it is absolutely perfect. Now, we're going to oil this, and I'm going to use a combination of penetrating and high build guitar finishing oil because, well, that's going to get me the best finish possible. Now, penetrating first, and I'm running low on tissue. I am just going to flood the fretboard. The thing is, I don't want to get any on the back of the neck at this stage. So I'm flooding it, but gently. Gosh, this... Now, the point of this is the penetrating oil is going as deep into the wood as possible, and eventually it's going to cure in there and help solidify it. Not to the same extent as if we were using resin in a vacuum chamber or any of those fun things, as we attempted earlier on in this build actually. We were using the wrong resin, basically. Which we now know. But yeah, it's going to go in there and it's going to help solidify the whole fretboard. And I'm going to keep on applying this until it starts pooling on the top. Now I could get away with spilling a little bit on the rest of the neck. There is still going to be a lot of fine sanding and some shaping to do. I don't particularly want to risk it though, because we do have a lacquer finish or a varnish finish of some sort planned for this build. So still sucking in a little bit. There's still some more to be applied. You can see drier bits and saturated bits. I'm going to put a lot more on. This is rather pretty though, isn't it? Now that we're getting to a point where it's mostly saturated, I'm going to take some 500 grit, wet and dry, and I'm going to properly work this in. Now, on top of forcing oil into the wood itself, we're polishing the wood and also filling the grain. And I'm going to do this basically until I get really bored. I'm going to keep on applying the penetrating oil with sandpaper for a little while. I'm going to move up to 800 grit after this application here, then 1200, then I'm going to sit at about 2000 after that. Essentially, this is still the first coat of oil. I'm putting a lot on, but this is still the first coat. I'm going to then let it cure over at least a day before I go and start using the high build. Skipped a step actually. This is closer to 1200, but that's not a problem. So here we are. First layer applied. Can you see that shiny spot in the middle of that fret slot there? That is some of the penetrating oil coming back up through the pores. You need to watch out for that, especially if you're in a particularly porous wood. It will do that and keep on doing that about 10 or 15 minutes after you have buffed it all down. The most important thing with applying guitar finishing oil is apply it as much as you want, flood it, but when you are done, make sure to rub it back until it is touch dry. and then you let it cure. This is not a finish that wants to build layer upon layer upon layer. If you try and do that, the lower layers will not cure at all. You are impregnating the wood with an oil that then solidifies inside of the wood, rather than a varnish or something that sits on top of it. So take your wet and dry. This is wet and dry paper. Take your tissue and buff it back until it's dry, and then come back after 5 or 10 minutes and have another go and just make sure that you are there. The beginning. The beginning of the finish. I'm very happy. This is pretty much the best bit of a build, putting a finish on and seeing it come to life. So that was up to 1200 grit, I think, and I'm going to do 1500, 2000 while applying the high build finish, or high build guitar finishing oil, and we'll go from there after just a little bit more buffing. Even that would do. But that's good enough is not good enough for this build. So I'm going to let this cure for a day, day and a half, and come back with high build. It has been a day and a half. It's been 2 days. This original layer has cured rather nicely, and we've got a rather attractive sheen going on. And this is just the beginning. So, yeah. On to high build guitar finishing oil of awesomeness. So once it starts to go tacky, grab another piece of tissue and buff it off. And you want this to be dry to the touch, or as close to as you can get. We're not building a film finish. Now, yeah, that's not quite the effect that I was going for. I'm going to apply another coat quickly before any of this is cured, and rub that in with 2000 grit wet and dry paper. Then leave it to cure for at least 3 or 4 hours in this heat. It's quite a warm day today. So that's already now mostly gone and tacky. So rub the excess off and leave it to cure. All right, hey, how's it going? I've been applying oil to the fretboard, and this is where we're at. So what I'm going to do now is just show off how gorgeous this wood is. I'm going to clean these fret slots out. So it's got an amalgamation of oil and sawdust and all that sort of stuff solidified in there. We need to clear that out, give it a few days to cure and settle down, and then frets, I suppose. Fret slot cleaning saw. This is a little bit delicate. I really don't want to slip. One done. Many more to do. There we go. I'm really rather happy with this. A few more days of curing, and fret's going. But that's another video. Thank you for watching. Click like and subscribe if you wouldn't mind. Well, if you want to see more of this sort of stuff. And please consider supporting our Patreon, where this entire series ended up first. Time for a cup of tea. Share one with me.